The year it happened, nobody could believe it. It wasn't the kind of thing you saw in real life, more like a scene torn from a viral drama script or a twisted urban legend whispered among hotel staff and quickly dismissed. But it happened. Right there, under the gold-plated chandelier of the most luxurious hotel in the city, the Aurelius. A place so drenched in prestige that one had to dress, speak, and breathe wealth just to be acknowledged. And yet, that afternoon, a man was denied entry at the front steps, not because he didn't have a reservation, but because of what he looked like, what they assumed he was. Broke, homeless, out of place. But they were dead wrong. The man's name was Malik Townsend, a tall, weathered black man in his late 40s, with streaks of gray in his beard and deep, watchful eyes. That day, he wore old brown loafers that had seen better decades, a faded black shirt clinging to his frame, and jeans with faint scuffs on the knees. His clothes weren't dirty, just aged, softened by time. But that was enough for the concierge to intercept him before he even touched the marble steps. "Sir," the man had said with a look that barely masked disgust behind a professional smile, "you're not allowed in here." No request for ID, no offer to help, no acknowledgement of the quiet strength in Malik's posture. Just a flat rejection wrapped in velvet disdain. Malik didn't argue. He didn't even speak. He simply nodded once, turned around slowly, and walked back down the stairs without saying a word. But something about the way he moved unsettled the doorman. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't ashamed. He looked amused, and that was the beginning of something none of them would ever forget. For weeks after that incident, strange things began happening at the Aurelius. Inspections, internal audits, whispers from corporate offices. No one really connected it to the man at the door that day. Why would they? He had no name in their system, no credentials, no presence, just a ghost of a moment. But it was around that same time that the hotel's longtime general manager, Walter Stenton, was asked to take an indefinite leave due to what was vaguely described as compliance concerns. No one said more. No one dared to ask. Then came the phone call. It rang directly into the back office late one evening, picked up by assistant manager Felicia Kane. The voice on the other end was calm but commanding. "Prepare the presidential suite for the new owner," it said. "He arrives Friday." She'd barely had time to stammer out a response before the line clicked dead. She thought it was a prank, a mistake. But then the emails came. Official, documented, undeniable. Ownership of the Aurelius had changed hands, overnight, quietly. An anonymous buyer had purchased the entire property outright through a shell corporation based in Zurich. By Friday morning, the staff was on edge. The main entrance had been scrubbed spotless, and every employee was in starched uniforms, as if the president himself was arriving. A black SUV pulled up, and when the door opened, every head turned. And out stepped Malik Townsend. Same man, same slow walk, same weathered loafers. But this time, he wasn't stopped. This time, the double doors were held open for him. No one understood what was happening. No one dared breathe too loud. Felicia recognized him instantly. Her hands began to tremble as he walked past her. She hadn't said a word during the incident weeks ago. She'd watched the concierge humiliate him and said nothing, did nothing. Now, she looked like she was seeing a ghost. The twist was almost too much to process. Malik, this man they assumed was nobody, was now in control of everything. The front desk, the staff, the finances, the walls, all of it. Rumors exploded behind closed doors. Was he some reclusive billionaire? A media mogul? A prince in disguise? The truth was more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Because Malik hadn't just bought the Aurelius for revenge. He had a plan, a reason. One rooted deep in the building's past. A past the hotel had tried hard to erase. It started 23 years ago when Malik had walked into the hotel's service entrance, not as a guest, but as a dishwasher. Back then, the Aurelius had just opened, gleaming and full of promises. Malik had been hired under a different name, working double shifts in the shadows, barely making enough to afford rent. But he'd been observant, sharp. He'd memorized the blueprints, learned who really pulled the strings. He'd seen things, illegal things, hushed deals, cash payments slid under tables, trafficked guests moved in and out under fake names. When he tried to report it, he was fired, silenced, blacklisted. What no one knew was that Malik had kept everything: photos, records, names. Over 2 decades, he rebuilt himself, started a cleaning business, then real estate, then tech, quiet investments, multiple aliases. He never forgot the Aurelius, not for 1 second. And now that he owned it, he wasn't looking for apologies. He wanted answers, not from the staff, not even from the old management, but from a man named Richard Holloway, the original founder of the hotel chain. A man who had vanished mysteriously 5 years ago after multiple lawsuits were settled out of court. A man whose signature was still hidden deep in the hotel's foundation contracts. Malik believed Holloway was still alive, somewhere, watching, waiting, and he wasn't going to rest until the truth came out. That's why he ordered the surveillance system gutted and replaced. That's why he had the entire 12th floor sealed off for renovations. That's why he hired a security team, not for protection, but for a quiet hunt. Because Malik wasn't just reclaiming a hotel, he was digging up a body, figuratively, or maybe literally. One night, just after 2 a.m., Felicia caught a glimpse of something she wasn't supposed to see. Down the service hallway, past the staff lounge, a door that had always been locked was wide open. And inside was a room she didn't know existed. Concrete walls, flickering lights, and a photo, an old black and white photo nailed to the center of the wall. 5 men in suits. One of them was younger, clean-shaven, but unmistakably Malik. The others were strangers, except for one, Richard Holloway. That same night, Felicia tried to log into the system to pull employee archives. Her access had been revoked. The next morning, 2 staff members were gone, their names deleted from the roster. Malik never mentioned them. No one did. But the tension in the air grew heavier. There was something buried inside that hotel, something everyone had ignored until now. Malik was no longer the man outside the building begging for dignity. He was the man inside, ripping out walls, opening vaults, following trails of hidden passageways that were never meant to be discovered. And he was close, too close, because just 2 days before the grand reopening celebration, a sealed envelope appeared under Malik's suite door. No name, no return address. Inside it, a single sentence written on a torn piece of aged ledger paper: "He's not dead, and he knows you're here." And that was just the beginning. For a moment, Malik just stared at the paper. He didn't move, didn't blink, his expression unreadable, jaw clenched, shoulders still. It wasn't the message that disturbed him, it was the handwriting. A style he hadn't seen in years, bold strokes and old-fashioned curls, like it belonged to someone from a different time. Someone long gone. Someone who wasn't supposed to be alive. Richard Holloway. Malik closed the door quietly and walked over to the window of the presidential suite. Below, the city buzzed as if nothing had changed. The skyline glittered in cold glass and artificial light. But inside the hotel, something had shifted. The air felt heavy, charged. He'd come here for ownership, for control, for justice. But now, it felt like something was watching him from behind the walls. And the deeper he dug, the more it became clear. This wasn't just about payback. It was about survival. He picked up his phone, dialed a private number. "He made contact," Malik said. The voice on the other end cursed quietly. "I didn't think he had the nerve." "He has more than nerve," Malik replied. "He's got reach." That night, Malik didn't sleep. Instead, he went down to the sealed 12th floor, using his personal override key. The air down there was colder, untouched. The renovation signs were a cover. No construction crew had stepped foot on the floor since he bought the building. Malik had sealed it for one reason: it held secrets. He stepped past the faded wallpaper, peeling in strips, and the dark carpet, stained in places with something long dried. At the end of the hallway was the old office suite Holloway used decades ago. It hadn't been entered in over 20 years. Malik had the original blueprints. He knew there was a second door hidden behind a panel in the storage closet. He pushed the panel open. The hinges creaked like something exhaling from the dark. The room beyond was small and windowless. A desk, a cracked leather chair, and walls lined with dusty file cabinets. But what caught Malik's eye was the safe, an antique, buried under a false panel, locked with a mechanism no longer in use. He'd spent weeks finding a locksmith to decode it, someone discreet. That locksmith had gone silent 2 days ago. Malik placed his hand on the cool surface of the safe, then turned the dial with precision. Click, click, silence, and then it opened. Inside was a manila folder marked with a single word: Ascension. Malik flipped it open. Dozens of pages, legal documents, wire transfers, photos, names, and at the center of it all, a contract, signed by Richard Holloway, confirming his exit from the company under a different identity, a transfer of ownership to a second shell corporation based out of Singapore. But that wasn't the most chilling part. The last page was a letter, handwritten. To whoever finds this, the walls bleed memory. You think this hotel is made of marble and gold, but it's built on bones. If I disappear, it's not by choice. There are things I've done that will never leave this place. If you're reading this, you're next. R.H. Malik stepped back, heart pounding. He heard a sound in the hallway. A creak. He turned off his flashlight. Silence. Then, footsteps. Slow, purposeful, coming closer. He slipped into the shadows, pressing his back to the wall. The footsteps stopped outside the hidden door. Then they moved on. He waited 5 full minutes before emerging and locking the room behind him. By the next morning, the envelope was gone. The cameras on the hallway had gone offline at 2:43 a.m. for precisely 5 minutes. Someone had planned it. Someone who knew the system. Someone inside. Malik called a meeting with his security team. 2 ex-military, 1 cyber intelligence specialist, all hand-picked. "We've got a rat," Malik said, "and I think they're working directly for Holloway." "What do you want us to do?" one of them asked. "Lock down the building. No one in or out without clearance. Cancel the reopening. This place isn't clean." "But sir," the cyber specialist hesitated. "The staff, the press. If we cancel now..." "They're not the concern," Malik said. "We're sitting on a crime scene. We just haven't found the body yet." Within the hour, Malik's orders were in motion. Bookings were mysteriously delayed. The lobby staff was cut to minimum, and 3 of the newer hires were quietly terminated. Felicia Kane, the assistant manager, was one of the few who remained. She confronted Malik outside the kitchen service hallway. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice shaking. "The place is turning into a ghost town." "Because there are ghosts here," Malik said quietly. "And they're not staying buried." Felicia looked like she wanted to protest but didn't. That night, she received a message on her phone from an unknown number. "Do you know who owns you?" She stared at the screen for a long time. Her fingers trembled as she locked her phone and walked toward the elevators. She never reached her suite. Her keycard was later found in the stairwell. Her body was not. Malik was the first to know. His security team traced her last known location, but the footage was corrupted. A black screen from 10:17 to 10:26 p.m. 9 minutes unaccounted for. Just like the envelope. Just like the locksmith. Just like Holloway's disappearance. He was running out of time. Malik returned to the safe room the next morning. He needed to find more. A connection. A lead. But the safe was empty. Everything gone. Even the Ascension folder. In its place was a new envelope. Inside was a USB stick. He took it to his suite, inserted it into a burner laptop. The screen flickered, then played a video. Grainy, time-stamped from 17 years ago. The camera panned across a dimly lit room, inside the Aurelius. 4 men sat at a round table. One of them was Holloway. The others were men Malik recognized from the original black and white photo. The 5th seat, empty. On the screen, Holloway leaned forward. "We bury this here," he said. "No records. No noise. The boy's out. And if he comes back, we'll shut him down again." Malik leaned in, breath catching. "I don't care what he's seen," Holloway continued. "He's nothing. A dishwasher. You want to make an example of someone? Make it loud. Burn 1, scare 10. But this one, bury him quiet." Malik stared at the screen. They were talking about him. 17 years ago, they'd planned his erasure. Not just from the hotel, but from the city. The reason no one had taken his report seriously. The reason the HR letters disappeared. The reason his file had been wiped. It had all been deliberate. And now, someone was still trying to finish the job. He stood up slowly, his knuckles white. The room seemed to close in around him. That night, a blackout hit the hotel. Power down. Backups failed. Elevators stuck. Phones dead. The Aurelius plunged into darkness. Malik moved fast, grabbed his flashlight, his encrypted phone, and headed for the basement. He had a theory, a terrifying one. If Holloway was alive, he wasn't far. In fact, Malik believed he never left. The elevator shaft was dead, so he took the stairs. Down to sub-level 3, where storage records used to be kept, where no guests ever went. He reached the bottom, flashlight cutting through the darkness. What he saw made him stop cold. An old security door, still powered by backup battery, was wide open. Inside was a bunker-like room, concrete walls, rusted vents, and a leather chair facing a wall of dusty monitors. In the chair sat a man, old, pale, barely breathing. Tubes in his arms, a blanket across his lap. Malik stepped closer. It was Richard Holloway, alive, hooked to machines, a ghost of his former self. Malik's voice was steady. "You really never left, did you?" Holloway turned his head slowly, eyelids heavy. "The world forgot me," he rasped. But the hotel didn't. Malik circled him. "You tried to erase me. You built this place on blood and bones, and now you're rotting in your own empire." Holloway coughed, a dry rattle. "It wasn't personal, it was survival." "For who?" Malik snapped. "You built a machine, and then became a prisoner inside it." The monitors crackled behind him. Suddenly, Malik's phone buzzed, a message from his head of security. "Fire alarm triggered, top floor. Evac required immediately." Malik turned. Holloway was smiling now. "You really thought you were in control?" he whispered. From the far wall, a mechanical hiss, then a click. Gas, leaking from a pipe, silent, colorless. Malik rushed to the door, but it slammed shut, locked. He pounded on the steel, coughing. Then his earpiece crackled. "Sir, we've got him. The trigger came from sub-level 3, sending a team now." Malik dropped to his knees, dizzy. But just before he blacked out, the door burst open. Light, voices, hands dragging him out. He coughed violently, gasping for air. Behind him, the room exploded in a fiery blast, blowing the steel door off its hinges. Holloway, gone, vaporized in the place he built. Malik woke up hours later in the medical wing, oxygen mask over his face. His security chief sat beside him. "He tried to kill you." Malik nodded weakly. "Because he knew I found the truth." They watched the monitors as emergency crews arrived. Media swarmed outside, staff evacuated. The Aurelius burned from the inside out. Not a total loss, but enough. Enough to expose everything. Enough to bury what needed to stay buried. 2 weeks later, Malik held a press conference on the hotel steps. He announced a full investigation, criminal charges pending against former executives, a whistleblower fund, and plans to turn the top 2 floors into a non-profit legal center for victims of corporate abuse. He didn't mention Holloway. There was nothing left of him to prove he existed. But later that night, in his suite, Malik received a final package. No note. Just an old photo. Of the original 5 men, only now, it had a 6th figure added. Standing in the shadows, watching, smiling, and Malik knew it wasn't over.